I want to acknowledge and thank a number of persons who have been instrumental in launching me into this area of activism and supporting me as I traverse this challenging field. My dear friend Rebecca Voelkel, now leading the Task Force Welcoming Church Movement Program, the Institute for Welcoming Resources, was one of the co-founders of GLBT Generations. She and I, along with another friend, Roger Youngs, were involved with Spirit of the Lakes United Church of Christ in Minneapolis. Rebecca was pastor. Roger and I were members. When one of our congregants, Gail, a transgender woman, suffered a stroke at her home on a Sunday evening. In order to get treatment necessary for her survival and for her recovery, Gail had to assume her masculine identity as Glenn. We realized that this was the kind of scenario that was going to play itself out more and more as the GLBT community aged and started to need health and social service from providers who knew little about our community and its needs and its fears. That incident gave birth to GLBT Generations and started my activism in the field. So I say thank you to Roger and Rebecca. But I also have to thank the wonderful friend who introduced me today. If you don't know Amber Hollabaugh, you haven't met one of the jewels in the field of aging. As senior analyst for the task force and convener of the National LGBT Aging Roundtable, Amber brings unbounded energy and passion to the issue of aging. She's been a good friend and a valuable mentor to me. A lesbian a few years ago approached me in a Twin Cities bar. As an aside, I love bars, I love jazz, and I love good cosmopolitan martinis. That combination has gained me access to the often amazing, sometimes heartbreaking stories that make up the fabric of our GLBT community. This lesbian told me that I was the perfect example of a crone. I was perplexed by the comment and then started to feel that I had been offended. She said, "That's a great compliment. Look it up." And I did, and found that a crone is a woman who is willing to acknowledge her age, her wisdom, and her power. I did, and I feel great pride in accepting that compliment and living up to its demands. I will take that identification to segue into two topics that I feel need to be mentioned at this Creating Change conference. One was alluded to yesterday by both Matt Foreman and Mark Kiesling, and that has to do with the aftermath of ENDA. I, like many of my transgender brothers and sisters, was appalled and angered by the decision to strip transgender protection from the bill. However, I have since come to realize that a significant event had happened in our diverse GLBT community as a result of this seeming disaster. The outpouring of support to the transgender community from across the breadth of the gay, lesbian, and bisexual and allied landscape was phenomenal and historic. We were no longer seen as strangers in a far land, but rather viewed as an integral and important part of the broad rainbow of relationships that make up the world in which we live our lives. This is a monumental blessing to the transgender community, but an equal blessing and epiphany for our brothers and sisters in the GLB world. Second, I have to add to the to-do list that Matt Foreman has compiled for a new, more encompassing, I was going to say compassionate, but I think that's been overdone and unused, for a more encompassing Congress. That would be to amend the Older Americans Act to include GLBT people as named category within the Act. We aren't there now. We aren't there now, and we need to be identified because this Act is the framework from where federal dollars and regulations flow for aging issues and programs, and because that identification flows to the states, counties, and agencies that provide and regulate programs serving people as they age. In closing, thank you for your kindness in acknowledging my work, and I look forward to new adventures as we grow old together, happy and secure in who we really are. Thank you.